Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Lavallo. I chair the Belmont High School, Middle and High School Building Committee. Today is Friday, May 13th, and we come into you via remote Zoom meeting. Thank you to Jeff and Belmont Media for managing this remotely. As far as a few procedures here, by the way, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. As far as a few procedures here, I'll just run through a remote meeting. We'll establish a quorum with a roll call vote, and that will confirm our attendance for the building committee members. I'll ask folks to keep their mics muted so that those that are speaking won't be distracted or interrupted. And then when it's time for you to speak, you could turn your mic on. Please introduce yourself so that folks know who's speaking. When it is time to call a roll call vote, I'll ask the committee members to all turn their mics on at once so we could run through that pretty quickly. Material for today's meeting was sent out to the building committee members yesterday and will be available following this meeting on the Belmont Middle and High School website, building committee website. For public, there'll be a time for comment later in the meeting. And if you have or want to comment on this meeting, please on a smartphone or computer, you could raise your hand, and on a normal dial-in phone, you could press #9 and the co-host will call on you. If at any time we lose audio connection for this meeting, the meeting will be suspended until which time that is reconnected. So with that, I'll go through roll call voting. Good morning, Emma Thurston. You're here?
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Patrice Garvin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Patrice. John Phelan.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, John. Pat Bruce.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Pat. Diane Miller.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Diane. Dave Blazon.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Dave. Tom Caputo.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Tom. Joel Mooney.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Joel. Kate Bowen. Kate. Okay. Jamie Shea couldn't make it today. Bob McLaughlin.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Bob. Chris Messer.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Chris. Joe DiStefano. Joe. Okay, Mike McAllister.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mike. Ellen Schreiber.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Ellen. And Bill Lavallo is here. Thank you. For our consultants, just to get them aligned here, Tom Katsunis with CHA.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Tom. Did you say Don White couldn't make it today?
That is correct. He will not be here.
Okay, Sandra Saccone from CHA.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Sandra. Justin Fredenze.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Justin. Tony Del Greco from CHA. Tony?
No, he will not make it today.
Okay. Okay, so from Perkins and Will, Brooke Trivis. Okay, Vital Albuquerque from Perkins and Will.
Morning.
Morning, Vital. Brian Spangler from Perkins and Will.
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Brian. Christine Mulligan from Perkins and Will.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, Christine. I think that's it, right, from Perkins and Will? From Skanska, is Dan Landeville there? Okay, Jim Kraft, you here?
Good morning, folks.
Good morning, Jim. Paige Matthews from Skanska.
Good morning.
Good morning, Paige. Is that it? It's Mike here from Skanska?
No, he's not today.
That's okay. So just to recheck in on a couple of committee members I was expecting. Kate Bowen. Okay, and Joe DiStefano. Okay. I just go through the agenda. I review the agenda with Pat and Chris. Oh, hey, Jeff, can I get sharing capabilities? Co-host. Or Chris, can you give me co-host?
Let's see if I can here.
Guess I didn't pay my dues.
I'm not sure if I'm able to do that. I think the host has to.
Okay, Jeff? While we're waiting for Jeff, so
There you go.
okay, thank you. So Chris and Pat usually guide me on dialogue as we, can you see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, as we go through the agenda, and Pat said, Bill, you don't have to list everything unless specifically unless there's a need for a vote. But so there's a lot on here, but it usually flows pretty quickly, and it helps me at least put together thoughts. And so it may look long, but there's the dialogue continues to flow. So our next building committee meeting right now that I have scheduled, I have one scheduled for June. It's our business meeting on the 9th. And I do believe that's a Thursday. So at 8 a.m. And I'll work on getting some future meetings together. We may need a second meeting. I think we will for approval of PV for bid. Excuse me. I think it's a great time for our next building committee tour. This time we'll be able to walk through the second phase. You'll see quite a lot of the space framed out. You'll be able to see classrooms and corridors and libraries, et cetera. So I'm proposing that for Thursday, May 26th at 4 p.m. And I hope committee members that works for you. I'm thinking that we'll meet at the turf field. So park in the back lot there and meet around the turf field. Could actually go on the turf field, Bob, take our shoes off and feel that fill, the Brock fill. It's pretty awesome. And then we'll take a quick tour of the locker room progress and then go right into the new wings. So it will be a fairly, I suggest allocating about an hour. We'll be able to also see the road and field construction from back there as it's progressing. So that's I'll send an invite out, and that's Thursday, May 26th. Superintendent Phelan, would you mind passing that opportunity on to school committee if I send it to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Usually we invite the school committee. And then I'll just go through what we're doing after that. I'm just going to speak a little bit. You folks, and we all discussed last meeting how we might help better inform the community. So we've been doing some things. We'll talk about that. We'll get right into the meeting minutes from our last meeting. We'll find out what our team has been doing on the project. We'll update on project cost events. That's our big cost summary. You've asked to be a little more engaged in the dialogue that happens for changes before they're ready for committee approval. So we've offered a few, and we'll see if that's the right pace for the committee for discussion. We do have pending change orders, 2 of them to review. Update on direct COVID cost spending. We'll talk about that a bit. Prime contract change orders, is where we have 2 of those. We have a little bit of a change for an FF&E package. Talk about that. We'll pay bills. We get a construction update. We have a schedule update, and then we'll wrap it up with community comments. Any questions on the agenda? If not, I'll go right into the committee updates, and this is really for the committee to weigh in. So a big shout out of thanks to Diane. Diane has been sort of taking the lead on what we might be doing. And Diane, you're on. Would you want to talk about what we have planned?
Sure. We've got a couple things going on. First, we are working on updating our FAQ, which is on our website, but is woefully outdated at this point. So we're in the process of doing that. And then secondly, we are working with Belmont Media and organizing several short, probably 5 to 10 minute long video clips where they will be interviewing Bill and a guest, a different guest at each one. We would like to film them an opportunity to give people in the community a chance to see inside the building if they may not have been in the building yet. And we're going to be talking about different issues. So I think the first one, which we have scheduled to film the end of this month, and it's confirmed, I think, Bill, that John is going to be joining us as the guest for that. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Phelan. We have Superintendent Phelan. It's actually Thursday, right after our tour. So if folks want to stick around and see what happens for a 5 or 10 minute video clip, it'll be filmed inside the building. I guess second floor, looking over the central space of the building.
Right. And then we're also, as we're doing these video clips, we are also then going to start doing a little bit more revamping of the written updates that we had done toward the beginning of the project, so we can be sending those out via emails to various listservs and within the community, and just trying to be a little bit just kind of getting word out as to what's going on with the project.
A little more proactive, I'd say, so we're not being reactive to issues. How about any comments from committee members? I liked it to see if, Diane, you could get some help on some of this. Diane's going to be organizing a lot of this, but it does take a bit of work. I know for our first one, we have we're nearly complete with our PV fact check summary. It's a one-page summary. I have a couple of people reviewing it right now for technical correctness, and then we'll post that on the webpage as well. And those are the types of things we'll try to have as we move through the rest of this project. The one thing we didn't get a response back on is whether or not the chair of the select board wants to get a 5-minute update every other month or something. So we're still waiting to hear on that.
So Bill, I can speak to that. I did speak to Mark, and he is open to that. He said, let's figure out what the right cadence is, and we can either do it every other, or we can do it ad hoc as needed. But he is very open to a periodic update.
Okay, so maybe after town meeting, we'll see what that looks like.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Diane. And I know Diane's reaching out to folks, and I'm reaching out to folks to review different things. I do appreciate it. I like the idea of being a little more proactive and getting material out to the community. I hope you can see this. The next item on the agenda is our meeting minutes. These were sent out for our last meeting, which was Thursday, April 28th, meeting number 142. At this point, are there any comments or suggestions of edits from committee members? Okay, then hearing none.
Move approval, Bob McLaughlin.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Committee members, please turn your mics on. All those in favor, Emma Thurston.
Abstain, I was not here.
Yes. Patrice Garvin.
Yes.
John Phelan.
Yes.
Dave Blazon.
Yes.
Tom Caputo.
Yes.
Joel Mooney.
Yes.
Bob McLaughlin.
Yes.
Chris Messer.
Yes.
Joe DiStefano. Mike McAllister.
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber.
Yes.
And Bill Lavallo, yes. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is, I'm going to turn this over to our project team. So this would be CHA, Perkins and Will and Skanska to talk about their project management over the course of the last month. I don't think we don't have time to review details of this, but maybe speak to some of the highlights. And we'll be doing this, as you can tell, on a regular monthly basis, but what has changed or what also might have happened this past month that you folks were involved in?
Good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you,
Tom.
Bill. Aside from, as you just mentioned, all of the normal, regular activities, punch list, et cetera, that we've gone through and do every single month, highlights for this month are the last month lighting controls. And we all know that there's been issues with controlling the lighting in the building, and we are actively working on that with the design team, with the contractor and the systems controls contractor. So it's a pretty sophisticated system, and getting all the bugs out of it is taking much longer than anyone would have liked, but we are actively working on it. Locker procurement. As part of COVID related as well as supply chain related issues and contractor ancillary issues, the lockers in the locker rooms have been delayed. Skanska and CHA are working hard to find alternatives and get lockers. And for the upcoming school year, we will be moving the lockers from the temporary locker room down into the space so that when the students come in September, they will have lockers in the new locker rooms, and those will be up and functioning, and the small gym will be back in use as a small gym. Those are the main points. And of course, working on the PV solar panel procurement and all of the related issues with that that we've been working on behind the scenes with you, Bill, with the committee, and with Jonathan Elder.
Who is our counsel for this project. Okay, any questions from committee members on CHA? Perkins and Will. We'll flip over to that.
Morning, everyone. Brian Spangler here with Perkins and Will. I would say in addition to, continuing our day-to-day work out here, we're still out here at least 4 days a week. Probably the focus this month has really ramped up regarding the phase 2 interior work. So we're seeing a lot of MEP and fire protection and interior finishes being installed, as well as the envelope being completed. So a lot of communication back and forth with Skanska regarding all of that work that is really picking up. We've also been working to document the committee's changes to the phase 2 site work and athletic fields that were voted on recently. And of course, all of the other items listed here that we're doing on a monthly basis.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from committee members on Perkins and Will's activities? Paige, is this you for Skanska's activities? This is management, not necessarily the construction.
Correct. Yeah, so just a couple highlights. I would say in the last month, our particular focus from project management and field has been scheduling and sequencing of work, both for the phase 2 side of the site and also for summer activities that we're going to be doing in the existing high school and work at the phasing line. So we've coordinated extensively with the school department and CHA and Perkins and Will on what we could tackle on the phasing line to try to get out ahead of some of the work we have to do in the final summer. So that plan has been finalized, and now we're actually going into the steps of communicating it back to all the subcontractors who helped us make the plan so that we're ready to move forward as soon as school is out come the summer. So that's been a big push of ours. In addition, the facade, I'm sure you see a lot of yellow when you drive by. We are actively sheathing. We started roofing. We have AVB going on site. So all of that takes an incredible amount of just scheduling, sequencing, make sure we get it when all these subs were here in phase 1, but remobilization from a safety perspective and making sure everybody's up to date on construction work plans, quarry checks, that type of stuff. Just because we have so many subcontractors coming to the site to get, restarted. So we've had a heightened emphasis on just making sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's when people are remobilizing and not taking for granted the year gap between these activities. And then I think that's the bulk of the important stuff. The rest is really just what we've been doing this month. With the landscaping VE, we did some OMEs for that. So just keeping on with our change management process as well. So.
Thank you, Paige. A couple of things. One, you didn't talk about your last line, but you went back and counted.
I did. Yeah. So if we average those meetings to 2 hours a day, 6 hours a day, I'm in meetings. So I realize that that's probably why I feel like I need to work 12 hours a day. So
what Paige is talking about is the Skanska looked at the total of meetings that they had, and it was 74 for the month of April. So, and I'm pretty sure that many of those were attended by CHA and Perkins and Will. So
yes.
Okay. Just a couple of comments. The lockers, I want to really thank the school department for being flexible. It's a challenge. When we hear about challenges in construction, it's challenges the school department because there's also some pivoting that has to go on. So I thank the principal and Isaac Taylor and his staff for being able to be somewhat flexible. That's been a challenge all along, just the whole locker room. So we're moving along. By the way, these lockers they're going to be on their third lifetime, right? It's amazing since they were put in 50 years ago. So some of the lockers anyways. Another thing that CHA has been doing is helping us plan for the next planning board meeting. That is Tuesday of next week, right, Tom? Tuesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. I don't know if, well, if the committee members, it's remote, and this is an update, but it is a hearing, Tom, right? It's it's been posted. So there will be public comments, and certainly committee members are welcome to attend, and that is on the website.
Correct. It's actually two-part, Bill. It's the update and then the freestanding sign applications for the Concord Ave and Hittinger Street.
So our bylaws require that standing signs require a special permit, and that's what Tom, we discussed that during planning board hearings a couple of years, 3 years ago, and it was planned that we would come back at a particular time, and so our summer work, right, Paige, is planning to put those monument signs up, and this is the application process. And then I want to talk about safety for a minute. We don't spend a lot of time here on safety, but Skanska takes, and the entire team takes safety very seriously on site. And every week, and this is the one meeting I go to, right, the OAC meeting, it starts with a safety moment. It starts with a safety overview. Paige, you just want to talk about an unfortunate incident with an injury this past
Yes.
few weeks ago?
Yes.
Just please brief. I know it's hard to be, but
It is. So it was April vacation week. It was Thursday of that week. And right around coffee time, the plumbing contractor on site received a phone call that they had an unexpected delivery, and it was not their usual crew. It was a classic example of people going on vacation. So it was a 17-year-old kid who was just filling in and a retired gentleman who was filling in. So neither knew the site, neither was familiar with really what they were doing. So the foreman told them to hang tight. They were finishing coffee and they'd come over. It was actually at the far east side of the site. So as far away from the construction site as you can get and still be on our job site. And those two gentlemen decided to start unloading without the crew present. And it was cast iron pipe, very heavy. We estimate that the racks were about 1,500 pounds each. And one of the racks, when they were trying to get it lowered to the ground, fell onto the 17-year-old kid. And we heard, a lot of us heard the yelling that something was wrong. And our laborers and some of our supers actually were the ones that pulled the pipe off of the kid. And what he ended up being taken to MGH, and his arm was broken and his leg was broken. But he did not need surgery, which early on there was rumblings of that. And because of his age, they said they thought everything would kind of set back into place. As a result of that, we had OSHA here to do an investigation. It was a localized investigation, so they didn't step foot onto our job site. But we were able to handle that. Nothing has come out of that. That PJ Dion may be cited, I don't know. But we followed all the correct protocols, and they were, in and out of our site that day. But it was a crisis management moment for our team. And just, we were very thankful, Manny and I, that we had the training we've had at Skanska to deal with that incident. And it was, we were very, very thankful that the kid had the injuries he had, because realistically, if it had fallen directly onto his chest, we would be in a very different place. So that is, sorry, I try to be brief, but.
No, you are. I appreciate that. And questions for committee members? This is a construction site, so there's a lot of risk, and I applaud Skanska for making the effort day in and day out to keep it safe for workers to come to work in Belmont and to go home safe to their families. So I'm glad to hear that fellow.
Just to add, if you don't mind, one minute here. Skanska takes kind of great pride in our safety protocols and systems, and literally Manny Hoyo had just had during that prior to that coffee break, the training for those folks for exactly how to do unloading of trucks, because we teach them that, and we have a system in place and a checklist for everything to do. And it's literally these things that when they happen, it is almost always at this point somebody that hasn't been trained shows up, they're new, and things like that. And it's very difficult, but our goal is always to have zero incidents, zero injuries on any project, because we believe everything is preventable.
Thank you. And there's, on this project, there's a handful of cuts and nicks and bumps and bruises. So this is probably, I would say, the most serious one on the project. And let's hope it's the only one. So thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda I'll share is update on project cost events. This is where we dig in. Kate, I see you here, so I'm going to check you in. Good morning.
Good morning.
So project cost events, let me share it. And Justin, is this where you spend some time walking us through and taking questions?
I can do that.
Because everybody see the cover sheet, the front page? Nope. No one's saying anything?
Yes.
We see it. Sorry.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm doing right now.
Thank you.
So this is our summary sheet. I just, highlights that we want to continue to make would be our COVID, our solar budget that's hanging in our master budget here. Our total cost and spent to date is slightly over 220 million, right? Is that right, Justin?
That's right. Our committed amount is at 200. I can't even read that. 200. I'm trying to look at my sheet.
293. Right?
293. Yep. We're up to ProPay number 48 as far as reimbursement, with 60,267,000, and I believe ProPay number 49 is that was submitted and pending is at 3.1 million. That makes us basically spent to date about 75% of the total budget.
So a couple of months ago, and even last month, we heard reports that the MSBA was behind on payments. It sounds like they caught up. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true with this project, at least.
Okay. Well, that's good for us. And when we compare at the very bottom, the total spent to date of taxpayer funds and its relationship to what the projections was, that's at the 75% mark as well.
Correct.
Questions on this page before we move on, committee members? Okay, so the next couple of pages are updates on what we call our contingencies, whether it's the owner contingency, which is the second page. Not really anything new here.
Nothing from our owner's contingency, no, nothing new there.
And then our construction contingency, the upper portion was what was adjusted prior to the GMP. And then the bottom portion is where we've been tracking since GMP with, as we've been informing everyone, the negative number, which is offset by other contingencies here.
Yep.
Our last month PCCO was a bit over 1.1 million. That's in here, and we have a couple to approve today. I had a community member reach out to me recently and say, hope I get these questions right. Are all cost events changes to the GMP? And the answer is yes. That's why it's a cost event. Some of them may have zero cost. Some of them, well, we'd like more to be credits, but that's not usually the case. So there are cost events that impact the GMP by increasing the GMP. And this is what we track within this document. We'll get to that, Justin. Let's highlight how you're doing that. So every month, our GMP is changing, but every month it's changing within the budget or the tracking that we have within this document. And I know it's kind of confusing to especially folks that aren't with the building committee on a regular basis. But Justin, let's show how you're tracking that. But the question, does a cost event increase the GMP? Yes. The follow-up to that, what? Yes.
Can I clarify though? Can you confirm that the GMP is increasing, but the project budget is not?
Oh, good point. So it's within the so that's where I was going with this too. So yes, the GMP is increasing, but it's within our project budget that we're tracking, and that's where I'd like to spend a little more time today, and please, committee members, make sure with those questions like Ellen asked that we're making it very clear to community members. I think it's page 8 that has that summary today, no 7. And then that second part to the question was really getting back to, hey, are we going to need another contingency refresh? And the whole focus of that last one was no, because we have a document that we're tracking, and then when there's something that we didn't anticipate that's not even in this document, we need to offset that with work that the team does to find savings within either that solution or other solutions to offset that cost. Ellen, you always ask good questions to make sure we're getting it clear to our larger community. So thank you for that. So I'm just zooming out here. These are the changes again, right, Justin, on this page?
These are the post GMP change orders.
Yep.
Number 4 through 33.
And we have 34 and 35 that we'll talk about today. So Justin, this is where you're tracking the total predicted impact to the GMP. And maybe we spend a little more time today going through these and what they mean. And all the backup is in this document and the attached pages, right?
Right. So we have at the top, we have the first, the current GMP value, which is like we just discussed, the PCCOs 4 through 33, bringing our GMP to $254,452,000. And then we have a pending PCCO 34, which we'll review after this. The value of that PCCO is $49,068. We also have a second PCCO number 35 for $207,000, which is the list of PCOs that we can review. Total PCOs submitted and currently under review are the cost items that the team discusses and digs into before they get put into a formal PCCO.
So that's the work that you'll likely be doing in the next month, right? That they're currently under review, and then the majority of those show up next month.
Correct. Okay. Correct. The total outstanding cost events. This is our projected, not formally submitted costs that were coming, that as you mentioned, they're in the backup to follow. That's the total amount of costs that we can see in the foreseeable future.
And we have outside of this document, I don't think it's in here, but it's another document we attach, and Perkins and will go over that. These are the pending revisions for the potential changes that they see on the future that have not been submitted yet. Right?
The unknown costs.
Well, no, not yet. This is pointing to the negative, the credit of 238,000. Majority of which is, as Brian Spangler said, the documentation that's going on from our last site value engineering effort, where we made some changes that resulted in some net savings. So that documentation is being put together. There's an estimate for what that might look like, and it needs to be submitted, and then the final cost will be those that are reconciled. That's why it's shown as a credit. It is a credit. And that's, I expect, Brian, I think you're trying to issue that in the next month, right? Next couple of weeks.
That's correct. Yep.
So, and then the final one, Justin, is the unknowns, right?
Yeah, sorry, I got ahead of you. That is the unknown cost.
So if you add all that up to the GMP on the top, this is where we're projecting the GMP to be, right? So when someone says, are these costs impacting the GMP? The answer is yes. It's currently the number at the top, 254 million, and we expect it to be somewhere around 256 million when we're done. As Ellen said, It's within budget, and it is being tracked overall. So it's not necessarily something new to us. It is, it just takes a while before the actual contract agreement, the GMP, is changed. It goes through several review processes, and then the building committee has to vote on it. So we're doing that on a month-by-month basis.
Bill, may I ask a question?
Please do.
These items, I see where it says CSKA cost exposure log. These items are now making their way into the cost events, but they were already on our exposure log. Is that correct?
Well, they could have been or for instance, on the site stuff where it was about, you know, we did some changes more recently. That's something we worked on, so we created it. Every once in a while, something shows up that we weren't expecting. However, the team has put those allowances in place, the unknowns, as we hear about, and they're often drawing from those because they, in their experience, that's why those unknowns were put there, to offset those things that come along throughout the rest of the project.
Right. So these funds, though, were, I mean, everything, well, most at least, are coming from money that we already have put into exposure. This is not new exposure.
Correct. And if it is, it's being addressed through that anticipated fund we call the unknowns, that last line here.
Thanks.
To say it another way, Ellen, all of these are coming out of funds that have been encumbered in one way or another.
Great. That's what I thought. Just wanted to confirm.
Maybe there's a fact list that wants to go on with this so that we could post that on our website. Something to think about. Okay. Someone that's probably more articulate to explain that. I am going to take some liberty and say that the next, building committee approval, this section we're going to talk about in a little while, so we won't spend any time on page 5, or 6 is the second half of that. That's up here, I think. Oh no, I'm sorry. These are the other exposures. I'm sorry. This is part of that same one, right? I'm sorry.
Right.
So we go right to, this is where I wanted to go. Sorry, I was trying to jump there. We go to the summary, which is now on page 7.
Hold on a second, Bill. Can you come back to the top of page 6? That's where the 3 big ones are, 50,000, 46, and 42. So let me focus on the big ones and can I explain those?
What top of what page, Bob?
Page 6. The backfill site utilities at $50,000 and
yep. So we have a section, Bob. We have a section. We're going to talk about that in a little while, because we're going to go through every one of these, including those.
Yeah,
right,
those
Brian?
are the items listed in PCC 035.
So normally they're listed in here, but we actually have a section that we go through in more detail. We have narratives for that, and we have. So yes, we will go through that for sure, Bob. Thank you. That's why I wanted to just skip over this, because we do cover it in the next section.
Fair enough.
So this is our tracking that we've been doing. And there hasn't been much change on the COVID ARPA funding. Thanks to CHA, they've reached out to the MSBA with a formal request for clarification on our project funding agreement, and if it is impacted by ARPA funding. I find it very hard to believe that the town of Belmont is the first district that asked this question to the MSBA. But apparently, Tom, that's true.
That is correct. We are the first ones who have asked the direct question. So, and they thanked us for asking that. I was actually on a call with Mary Piketty for a while, and some others from the MSBA, because they're framing their answer not just for Belmont, but for the entire Commonwealth. And we're just picking my brain on all of the different aspects of the project and what could happen here or there, or not just with us, but anywhere else through the Commonwealth.
So when we were talking about CARES Act, the MSBA issued a directive ahead of that before we did anything with the CARES Act, and it was very clear, and we fell within. And so our acceptance of CARES Act funding did not affect our project funding agreement. we have to make sure that our project funding agreement isn't affected in a negative way if we do accept the ARPA funds. And so that's the work that's been going on. That's why it hasn't been a building committee agenda item for formal acceptance. And we did ask Tom for that answer this month ahead of some budgets that the town's trying to finalize.
That's correct. We asked for it by the 15th of May, and I will be following up on Monday.
So that's, if the committee member's been wondering why we haven't talked about it, it's just because we're needing to make sure that it's not an impact to our agreement with the MSBA. Right? Worst case is we take that and then they deduct it from our funding grant. Well, then we just lost that ability for the overall town taxpayers on funds. We don't want to do that. Okay. Just to wrap this up, so we're tracking our projected value here of after all the impacts of GMP, all those encumbered costs that we're anticipating, still a bit over $500,000, excuse me, $500,000. And someone last month said, can we track that month to month? So when we started with this new refresh, here are the monthly tallies as we're moving through those. And so we'll keep track of this. Ideally, we're trending in the right direction month after month. Questions? This page is the summary of all of the backup and the details wrapped up into one. Just for the public, there is the original value, right? Around 2020, actually. Then the current value, that's today. And so today we still have a healthy amount of allowances and contingencies, $3 million. We're projecting, though, by the time the project is complete next year, that would be around $500,000 of money left over. That's construction allowances, contingencies, and soft cost allowances that wouldn't be used. Okay, hearing nothing. The rest, I think, is hard to go into detail on this, except I will say the committee members have an opportunity to look through this, and these are the pending changes. Two things are going to happen today. One, we're going to review, as Bob was asking for, the actual change order in detail. And two, the building committee asked if we could go through a couple of these. With CHA, I chose 3, Pat and I chose 3, but we'll have to see if that's the right pace and cadence. So we have 3 to talk about, 3 of these pending changes that aren't in for approval yet, so that the committee can understand what the process looks like, what's going on, and ask some questions. And so out of these next 3 pages of information, our next section of the committee agenda would be talking about 3 of them. And if there's others that the committee wants to dig into, we could certainly do that too. And
can you make that bigger? Even on the hard copy I have in my hand, I can't read it.
I can make this bigger like this.
Yeah, much better.
It's hard to, it's hard to read. There's all sorts of, so I'm not going to have the numbers and all this, but I'm showing you 2 columns. One is the original budget estimate, and then the number where it might be today on a lot of these changes, and we just keep going down the list. Sometimes they start out higher and they go down lower. Sometimes they start out lower and they go higher. And generally, the team has been tracking pretty well. On a weekly basis, we get an update, and the trends have been in our favor, generally. So, and Bob, and the community out there, these are tough sheets to try and put onto any size. If you're printing them on a 8.5 by 11, you need a magnifying glass.
You got it.
And I have one. Every week, I take my magnifying glass out to look at it. I'll show you a bottom line, just to show what the group has done. Sorry, I just need to find a way to see it. There we go. Bear with me, please. Okay, so there is a tracking that the team does from the prior month and so they call it variance from baseline. Is that correct? Skanska, CHA?
That's correct.
Yep. And so this is a little different because it has something that was added in. I think this was when we took PV out and put it back in or something, but generally when we look at this from week to week and compare it to the last building committee meeting, we're heading in the right direction. This one we'd have to separate out. I think this is PV, right? That's making
That's
the difference.
correct. Yeah.
We took it out. If people remember, we took it out of Skanska County, we put it back in. So this is a delta against the PV budget. But if you took that line item out, you would find that this is trending in the right direction since the last month. Okay, and then I just want to go over the requisition for this month. Justin, you want to walk us through? Here's the GMP value, right? 254.
Right, that's the GMP value. Then we have below that the estimated completed store to date.
Well, that's actual, right? So just at 200,000, a few dollars short of that.
Right.
200 million.
200 million.
Yeah. And so when you do that ratio between the GMP and that, I think we're at almost 80%, right? 79% of the project is complete. And on the phase 2, I think we're almost at a third. I think we're showing about 36% complete on phase 2.
Bill,
yes,
may I ask on the pages before, what did the pink mean?
The pink items, I believe, are voided items.
Great, thank you.
A lot of the time we have things that are out of scope on this log that ultimately we fund via like GMP funding, allowances, that type of stuff. So that's why sometimes we're showing them, because it's important for the variance overall. But that's why those are in pink.
Great, thanks.
But next month they'll go away, right?
Yes, yeah. Once we reconcile month to month, we take them off.
So maybe next month we could see like a whole page with pink. That would be awesome.
We could do something so we can see. There's quite a few.
Believe me, Bill, that's all of our goal. We would like to see them all voided and all reconciled and done.
So for today's pay application, I believe that $3,459,311 is what we'll be voting on a little later.
That's right.
Okay, so questions from committee members? I do have to say that's okay. So that's why I was hesitating. I'll tell the committee members it takes a while to get all this material to you and present it. In the interim of going back and forth, there are adjustments that are made, tweaks. And so this document isn't 100% right, because we'll be voting on a pay application for each page, is that right, of $3,442,670. So this rec was reduced a little more since it takes about a week to put this whole document together. So since Justin started putting a document together, there was an adjustment in the pay application.
Hey, Kate, you have a question?
Just a quick clarification on the itemized spreadsheet. Just date of change, that's the date that the item was voted, is that correct? And
what page? What sheet?
The itemized list of outstanding cost events and submitted cost events.
Oh, the date of change?
That's the date that the document was, if I think I know what you're talking about, that's the date that the document was, like, the formal cost was provided to us for review.
So all of the backup here has not gone to building committee. So this is the back and forth between construction side and OPM side. And so they're tracking when the last update was provided.
Okay. And then in terms of status, if it says outstanding, that just something, it's not been submitted to us or to MSBA. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So MSBA gets it all after us. So they're way behind us. And outstanding means it hasn't even gone to the OPM or the architect for review, correct?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just a notice that there is a potential change.
Right. And the cost event date is really just when we generate it in our system, which is generally the day that we know about it. So the day Perkins and Will sends a change directive to us, we create a cost event. So generally it's within a day or so of the actual issuance of the change.
Or the day something is recognized out in the field.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to move right to Perkins and Will, and this is more of the team, but they're tracking things that haven't been issued yet. This is so.
Tom Caputo has a hand raised.
I'm sorry, Tom. Let me stop sharing. I can't.
No worries, Bill. I don't know when exactly you want to cover it, so if it's further down the agenda, just let me know. But I would be interested to get an assessment, perhaps from CHA, also from our partners, as to where we think we are broadly around our contingency and the effectiveness of the contingency refresh. And I know we're going to unpack some of the change orders, but just in aggregate, is there anything new or anything that is anyone's concerned about broadly in terms of the trends that we should be aware
of? Tom, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. So broadly, Tom, the number that Bill showed earlier, where we're about, a little over $500,000 overall in the contingency. That's, as long as we're staying around that number, we're very comfortable. Let me rephrase that. We're comfortable. This is construction. I can never say very, but we're comfortable because that means that overall our projections are staying consistent with where they are. As we've discussed multiple times, some numbers are going up, some are coming down. If something is going up, we work hard to find a offsetting savings to that without compromising anything within the project, from an operations point of view or long-term value, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. And I know we created a bucket for what I think we've been calling unknown unknowns, which is the hardest to predict. We're not seeing anything out on the horizon that sort of falls into that bucket that's giving us pause or would lead us to believe we haven't reserved enough there?
Not right now. And that's the only way that I can answer it. We put some dollars there for unknown unknowns, and so far, we really haven't had any major, oh boy, we have a problem or anything like that. Let me say that again. We have not had any of those events occur.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that each month that we go through and we don't have those, right, we get a little bit more comfortable that there aren't that many out there. But
every month that we have more material in the building and more of the building is completed is another month of, okay, we're tracking very well.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Ellen?
Yeah, Tom, or Bill, the money for the changes that we made last meeting, the site changes that we made, is that now baked into the contingency number?
It is. It's in the pending revisions section.
But when we look at that $500,000, that's already baked in.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
The other thing that came out though, Ellen, we go back to this, is what we've been dealing with as a potential risk. Let me go back to that page 7. I forgot to highlight this. We zeroed out about $150,000 here that we were showing before because Pat keeps telling me we'll never have allowances left over out of the CM contingency, and Skanska is saying, even though we had that in there, and they didn't have an assignment to it, the unknowns might grab that. So that those monies have gone away. There was some, so we got some savings and we took some of that risk away that was out there that suggested we probably wouldn't realize that 150,000.
Great, thank you. That explains what I was trying to figure out.
So while I'm on here, then we'll go right to, I think, Brian, just a quick update, and we don't go into the detail, but these are your actually weekly you're tracking these, and then on a monthly basis, we fold these in as the potential changes. And Ellen, there's that CCD 437 on phase 2 athletic fields changes.
Yep. As Bill said, we maintain this list, which gets issued weekly. It changes daily. It's basically a snapshot in time of issues that we have, that we know about, that we're working on documentation for to clarify. So as I've said previously, this can cover issues that come up in the field as a response to an RFI. You can see several of them, like PR 152 is in response to an RFI. It could be a change in scope, such as 437, which is the athletic field and site revisions that the committee voted on last month. And it could also include regulatory changes that come from the building inspector or another town department. I did want to note that the values listed they are listed on this log more so as a convenience for the whole team. We don't provide, Perkins and Will does not provide those numbers. Those come directly from Skanska. And we meet with Skanska and CHA twice a week, actually, to review this list.
2 out of the 74 meetings.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal is just to be hyper aware of the changes that are coming and the cost impacts and schedule impacts, if applicable,
and you're
that may be coming.
Right, and then you prioritize what needs to be focused on as far as getting them out.
Yep. And you can also see there's a 2-issue column there, which it lists the date that we anticipate being able to send the package out, which helps Skanska, plan for the work in the field, and they'll let us know, hey, we need this package sooner than others in order to stay on track. So a lot of communication related to this list between the entire team.
Excuse me, Brian, another big thing that comes as a result of these 2 meetings that we have when we review this list specifically is, as they're coming up as a group, CHA, Perkins and Will, and Skanska, we try and wrap our head around the issue, exactly what the issue is, and try and figure out, is there another way to build a mousetrap? Is there a different way to address this issue? Most times the answer is no, but sometimes we've had the ability to say, well, we could, what if we did this or what if we did that? Can we reduce the cost or eliminate the cost?
That's a great point. You can see, Tom and everyone, the second item there is listed PR 105 amended 2. So that's actually on the 3rd round of revisions in an effort to try to reduce the cost associated with that particular issue.
So I do want to let the committee know that during our walkthrough, we'll be pointing that condition out. And I think by the time we do the walkthrough, Skanska will have the documentation in hand. We might have a little more refinement on the cost, but that's been tracked for a while. And it is a latent condition, a condition within the existing field house interface between the new and the existing. That's been a challenge for the team. So we'll talk a little bit more on site about that. And then I do plan on having that component to a future meeting before it's in front of you for final approval, and sort of break that apart. And that all this is in the cost summary. So encumbered already. Any questions from committee members before we move on? Okay, so this is the time that we are adding to the project. We got to tell the committee, I'm still trying to be mindful of your time, but last month you said, well, we'd like to review some further changes that are potentially coming for the project. So before they're finalized. So there were 3 that were sent out to you. This is the first one, which is, I hope you're seeing this. I'm going to zoom in. I don't know what you guys refer to these. I guess you say potential change order 608R1.
Yeah, PCO, and then the big change order is a PCCO.
Right. So these are being tracked. It's cost event 1171.001 because there was a phase 1 and phase 2. I'm thinking, Tom, you're going to talk about this, and then there's sometimes lots of backup to these. We spared the committee with all the takeoffs or details or hours or things, and try to do a summary sheet. And this is the first time we're doing it. So please, I'm trying to gauge what we want to do, what we want to see, and how we want to talk about it. Tom, are you going to?
I was talking and I was muted, Bill, sorry. Yes, backup for these, we've only included the first couple of pages here, but there's, 18, 20, 28, 30, et cetera, pages of backup behind these. This item specifically is the reuse of the granite curbing. And while we did have the opportunity to reuse all of the granite curbing, or most of the granite curbing for phase 1, for phase 2, there is not enough reusable granite curbing to complete all of the work. So there's an increased cost, obviously, to bring in additional granite curbing to complete lining all the driveways and parking areas with granite rather than asphalt. This is an item that came up in discussions with DPW, and they were pretty adamant that asphalt curb will not last, and it will be a long-term additional cost to the town.
So Tom, I do think that we were in agreement that we removed some of the curbing scope from in front of the retaining wall.
That is correct. We have reduced curbing wherever we could and eliminated it where it was not necessary. There's really no reason to put granite curbing in front of a concrete block retaining wall. But certainly in the other areas, we need the curbing.
So this is not for approval today. None, the three that we're talking about, it's just to let the committee know of things that are pending, some of the detail, ask questions. Who are this is just primarily one vendor because it's French.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it. Is there any committee hands for? Okay, so Kate, you have this committee talk. Go ahead.
Just in the interest of the town, what happens to that granite curbing, that's considered unusable for this particular location? I'm wondering if it may be usable elsewhere. And also generally, like what would be considered unusable? I mean, we're talking about rocks.
So we're talking about pieces that, are small, a foot. When curbing is installed, it has to be cut to fit whatever its desired location was. And we're not going to go back, and the town would not go back and put in little teeny pieces of granite curbing that are a foot or 2 feet long. The curb sections are typically at least 6, if not longer, feet in length. So we wouldn't, and then the other areas are any curbing that is radius that's cut to a specific curve that was along a driveway or curb access or something like that. Those that are a decent length, we stockpile them, they're put aside, and DPW is given the opportunity to take them or not. We review that with DPW all the time.
So just Tom, to reiterate here, curbing, this is not new. Curbing scope was always part of the project. Curbing scope was to be granite. DPW hasn't changed that from during design review with them. The outcome of trying to salvage granite around the entire site didn't prove to be in our, well, we did some of it, we just didn't have enough.
Correct. That's correct.
And if there's a rate of $22 or something a foot, I think that's better than I paid for my house, but obviously you're talking about thousands of feet here, so I guess there's a better rate.
Right.
It sounds like DPW has the chance to store that material if it benefits the town, because I see that about 60% of it may be unusable for this location.
I'd say even more. If it was usable, we were using it.
That's right.
So the stuff that we didn't use, they couldn't use. I don't think they ended up really taking anything, Tom.
No, they have not to date.
Yeah. Try to use it all. So again, this is committee comments at this time. So I'm going to move on to the next sheet, which is 631. The next, hopefully you're seeing this. This is
Bill. Before you leave that, why is there an overtime component in the French proposal?
okay. Good question. Let's. Well, I'm not. You read it, Tom, Paige.
So I'm looking at it. I think it's just they list all of their direct labor. If you notice, there's no total hours worked here, and then there's a see enclosed breakdown. So none of this should be on overtime. I can verify that. I just can't find the breakdown right now, but I think that's just their generic first sheet that gives all their labor, their labor rates.
So understand, Bob, and committee members and community, this is not an accepted change at this point as far as cost. This is now something that was submitted, and those questions like Bob asked are being asked by the team or being, would happen in a normal conversation. So there could be questions that you have that they're still either evaluating or debating. This is a snapshot in time. Committee asked to see things as they're worked through. So I would not expect, or this is not, I would say, potentially the final cost.
Bill, I did confirm it's page 7 of the PCO, which you don't have here, but the detail has the actual hours and the actual rates that they're using in this change, and they're the straight time rates.
Okay. Thank you.
We, again, to reiterate what Bill said, we, CHA, Perkins and Will, and Skanska spend hours, I can't emphasize that enough, literally hours, going through all of these potential changes. And I'll use the word negotiating back and forth to arrive at an acceptable value at the end of the day.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. So I did pull up the next one. And by the way, committee members continue to ask questions. That's what this whole thing is about. I wanted to spend 10 or 15 minutes on this. So this one is potential change order 631. This one, I think, could be a credit.
That's correct.
Okay.
This one is a potential credit, or will be a credit at the end of the day. And again, as part of the overall review and design and constant checking and rechecking, we determined, Perkins and Will determined that we could eliminate some sprinkler heads because we are within a rated stairwell. That obviously is a savings because we don't have to put those in. It's a savings on the operational side as well, because that's that many less sprinkler heads that have to be maintained long-term. Original numbers were higher. We go back and forth. This is coming in currently at a potential credit of $5,207. Again, not a final number. We're going through and negotiating and reviewing it, and also making sure that we have not misinterpreted, I'll use that word, code, and that this will not, in fact, have to be installed. It's part of the back and forth review process.
So what's not shown here is what the first order magnitude might have been. So looking at the summary sheet that we had in an earlier section, this originally showed up as a thought that there was about $20,000 worth of savings. And I know, so as you dig into it, that order of magnitude has been reduced. This time not in our favor.
Right.
Yeah. Any questions? So there's another one under. So I don't see any hands up, so we'll go to the third one today. And that is 640. I think you should see this. And this, sorry, gotta go back up. Okay, access ladder. So Tom, you could explain this one.
Sure. Sandra has all of the details on it, but I'll quickly go through it. This is an access ladder to provide access to some mechanical components that are above the ceiling in one of the areas. In going back and forth and trying to find the best way to get there and to provide the access after the mechanical systems were in place, this one is very much a back and forth negotiation, because every time that we think we have found the best way to do it, there's other things that are coming into play that we have to then move in order to provide the access or redo the ceiling. These areas were finished and were not, because we didn't need to have the access for the TCO to get students in the building. And in a lot of ways, this is a go back and do the work to provide the access up there. One of the major cost components right now is a reinforcement of the catwalk area that this was a delegated design that the miscellaneous metals contractor is saying is required. That's the $32,000 that you see line number 003 in order to not have an unsafe condition on the catwalk. Again, very much a work in progress and we're going through it, but just giving you a snapshot of some of the things that are being reviewed here and looked at.
This is at the band. This is in the music wing.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. The design team, the solution that was on the drawings was a pull down access stair, which seemed reasonable at the time, but Dave and his team thought that access really wasn't going to be properly affording the access needed if something was going on, because in fact it encumbered a corridor when you had to pull that stair down. So if it had to be done during the day, I think that was going to be a problem. The access stair itself was not the easiest to deal with. And so this is a better solution for long-term service of the building. And you could see that there's probably 6 or 7, 8 trades involved in this. Questions?
How often do you expect that you'll have to use this ladder to get up there?
It's for the mechanical. Yeah.
At least four times a year for filter changes.
I mean, can a temporary ladder save us $63,000?
So, Bob, this was discussed during design. A temporary ladder is not an easy way to bring filters up and down, and on top of that, through a ceiling space. So there's a finished ceiling that you have to go through in this area as well. And that's only what Dave just said on maintenance. If there was a problem that needed immediate attention, now you've got an issue during the day. I think that's where, Dave, you were a little more concerned too.
Right.
So yes, ladder, but now you're starting to challenge a bit of safety, and long-term, that's going to be an issue because you have to pull tiles down in the ceiling. It's not the greatest place, Bob, to put mechanical equipment, but it ended up in the musical wing above a corridor ceiling. We don't see it when we walk through, but there's an issue up there to deal with.
We absolutely do look at the long-term maintenance and access. And in fact, not included in this, but just as an aside, we were able to eliminate an access ladder in a completely different area, and that will be now accessed via the lift that the school has and Dave has at his use. So, Bob, we are absolutely looking at, again, is there a better way to build the mousetrap? Is there a way to do this so that we can avoid costs but still achieve the overall goal of being able to maintain the building, operate the building in a safe and long-term manner?
I think it's good to note also that the actual title of this particular PCO is a little bit misleading. It talks about just the access ladder. It looks like an access ladder for $60,000, but actually there are other costs included in that. So this mezzanine area, mechanical mezzanine area that they need to access, it's over 800 square feet, or 832 square feet. And there's a diamond plated floor there so that you could actually access and walk around and access all of the equipment. But because that's a designated design that went through engineering, and it's also included in these costs are reinforcement HSS tubing that's going to be reinforcing the diamond plated floor. So those are significant costs as well. It's over $20,000 worth of HSS, tubing that's also being installed at that location for additional support for that floor. So basically, it's like a little apartment above the makeup room. You know, it's 832 square feet. It's a sizable space, and it's got sizable structural reinforcement that's happening, as well as framing out for this access stair and providing access from the stair into the mechanical mezzanine.
Just to be clear, it's not a luxury space by any stretch of the imagination. This is a space that is needed in order to maintain the equipment that is above the ceilings and provide safe worker access and, you know, to that space. It's
no real diamonds were used.
No. Thank you, Vital. Exactly.
Diamond plate is a technical term for steel plate that has some indentations or some components that kind of look like diamonds, so you have some grip to it.
Exactly. It's for safety, so that someone doesn't slip and fall up in that area.
Well, not diamonds. All right. Thank you, Vital.
Okay, Bowen.
What is the impact to the other space? You know, the change, obviously it's coming out of the janitorial closet. Is there any impact to student used spaces when this is in operation or in general?
No, Kate, that's part of the, one of the issues was being able to have the access ladder rise out of back of house mechanical space, not or custodial space or storage space, but not space that's used for teaching and learning, or that would be in a corridor where students would potentially have access to a ladder that takes you above the ceiling or anything like that. It's one of the complicating factors.
So the old design, Kate, had a pull down stair that was right in the middle of a corridor, right by the theater, where the theater dumps out next to the theater arts scene shop. So you could only imagine if Dave's crew is up there doing work and they had to keep that ladder down for access. There's no way to secure from people, whoever being nosy and walking up that. This puts it in a janitorial closet, so it's locked and secure, like Tom says. You walk up there and you're walking above the ceiling, and the rest of the corridor is used by the public and no one has access to it. So it's a much secure space.
I'm misreading the note then, because the note indicates the opposite.
Yeah, I was going to say it. I didn't want to blow this up, but it is right now in that corridor next to the theater. Yeah. That is the current design. So if we need to relook at that, we should. Sounds like we should, but that's what we have right now.
So so the note is correct.
Yeah. Originally we had a wall mounted ladder that took you up there from the janitor's closet, but it literally conflicted with all types of ductwork immediately above the janitor's closet. So that's what prompted this RFI and then prompted the change to the corridor. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the only places we can physically get up there.
So this is a work in progress.
Yes.
Very much.
So then I'll just voice that my concern about the functionality of the student areas as you reconsider this. I'm presuming both options are safe. Obviously, you wouldn't have done that in the first place, but understood you're trying to resolve a conflict. But if we're creating a situation where we're going to impact, after hours, theater uses, any number of those things, I would hope you would reconsider and reevaluate that, which sounds like you're going to do.
Yes.
Again, committee members at this time, so we'll move on to our next, seeing nothing. Let me ask committee members, is this a healthy, 15-minute discussion of updates of, now this is not the last time you're going to see those. They're not approved. As Kate was saying, there's healthy dialogue going on here. It could be 2 months, 4 months before this is finalized in front of us. Maybe one of them might be in the next month. Is this, I'm trying to gauge for next month, this is a good cadence of dialogue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is a brief update on some of our continued COVID impact costs. I don't know if it's Tom or
I can
who, but
I can explain this, Bill.
Justin, yeah, this is, so in our GMP, we didn't, it was, the public said, wait a minute, you have a GMP, all the costs need to be in there. And COVID was known before the GMP was signed. True, not before we bid, so the bids are locked and covered, but there was some concern, rightly so, on what those costs would be back in 2020. We created, between the legal side of both the town and Skanska, what we call Note 6, which says that we'll continue to evaluate periodically the impact to the job, direct costs, we'll call those GRs, general requirements, and make adjustments where those, so that there's proper funding. So for a while, you remember we were doing this every 3 months. We had allowance to cover us for a while, and here is another estimate now to take us through the end of this year. Right, Justin?
Right. So these are all the change orders that some of them don't have costs, but they were just established to reconcile the amount that's been expensed out of the COVID fund. So as you see zeros next to the PCCOs, that's that. So we have the GMP original value of 300,000. And then through change orders 7, 12, 17, 21, 26, and 34 hasn't been approved yet. But that's being voted on today. The total balance, if approved, would be $614,000.
So that's the expected expenditure of GRs. And you have all the attachments of our bigger discussion of COVID costs to this document. I'm not going to go through it again. We did this back in the end of last year. I'm sorry, beginning of this year. But there was a line in here that said projected cost items through September, end of our job, end of project. And so we're drawing upon some of that funding. And if you remember, this was totaling approximately $4.5 million overall, the impact to the job. But some of those we pay through project management, accelerated costs, that sort of thing, or even our change orders that have had additional surcharge costs. This particular item is funding our things such as our trailers, our cleaning stations that's continue to be there for the workers. I shouldn't say trailers, a space meeting trailer that gave us space. I think the team, Skanska, CHA, the goal here is hopefully, knock on wood, this kind of all goes away by the end of this year. We likely won't need to carry that special trailer, and the wash stations may be all gone as far as the COVID impact wash stations after this year. We hope so. So these costs might not grow any further after this change.
Bob McLaughlin.
Yeah, Bill, I find this very confusing. We have a document out there that says direct COVID-related expenditures is north of $4 million. And we got this document that says it's $561,000. I mean, you got to explain, not only for me, but for everybody else, what's the interrelationship of those two documents?
Again, I thought I did, but the two documents are here together. If you go through this, the first document that you referenced from January was the committee's, that was a response from Skanska from the committee saying, what was the total cost we ended up, that we projected for this from COVID, from the direct costs, also from premium time and deliveries, changes, all that sort of stuff. And that's the $4.5 billion, Bob. But so we're talking right now within the GMP of our GRs, there's a line item, if you remember Note 6, that we have to fund periodically to carry specific, what I was calling sort of specific COVID impact costs to provide services to the job, such as cleaning stations or cleaning itself. So we ran out of funds, or running out of funds within that line item in our GMP, and we need to refund that. And so that's what this is. It's not the total cost. It's just an explanation of the update. If you recall, we had to do this almost every 3 months. Yeah. Believe me, we had that discussion in January, the COVID impact. And by the way, I think Diane said that one of our segments would benefit from a larger discussion, right, Diane? The Belmont Journal, of just talking about the COVID impacts of the project. So we'll have to unpack that. So any questions on the reason that's here is because the next item is a change order to fund that. And this is where hopefully you'll see this. There is the $46,000 to help build that balance up to what Justin just explained. And this is note 6, direct cost. And the backup on this explains the trailer and the cleaning stations and so forth. So this is PCCO 34.
Bill, Patrice and Kate have questions.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Patrice.
Yep, just a curious question, Bill. Given the state and the federal relief out there for COVID, has Skanska been able to apply or capitalize on any of that relief funding that's out there?
I don't know that Skanska is working on, so Paige or Jim, can you respond to that question?
No, that is, Skanska has not, they have not applied, and I do not believe we intend to apply for any of that type. I believe we are too large of a corporation to do that. It's usually for the smaller corporations.
All right, well, yeah, go work.
Is that something, Patrice, that you would like to take offline to just see what your information is and if there's something we should pursue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of dollars out there, and I just want to make sure that if Skanska is eligible, there may be some relief that could be given.
So Jim, would you mind taking some time with me and after this meeting, not today I'm saying, but let's dig into that a little more.
Absolutely, we happy to be a part of that, yes.
And even to the extent that we can inform our community of why this doesn't qualify, and you could explain the thresholds. Thank you, Patrice. Kate, your hand is up.
Just so I'm understanding the COVID protocols, are we looking to change some of the ways in which we've had to operate? I think, over a year or so ago, the ideas about cleaning protocols were very different from what would be recommended now for this kind of site. So I'm wondering when those changes might happen. For example, transmission from surfaces is generally considered to be very, very low.
Jim, when we talked about that, that sort of phasing out.
We significantly reduced that. We were using, particular sprays that would last for a while. We're not expending the money on that type of spray. We've reduced the amount of cleaning times that we do it to once a day versus, multiple times. And I think we're even lower in that as far as the amount of wipe downs. So we are definitely almost, I think was maybe an hour a day for anything extra at this point. Paige, is that what we're doing?
Yep. Sorry,
I guess I'm wondering where those recommendations are coming to you, and if we might, I'm presuming that all of that is just within the construction site as well.
Yes, in our trailers.
In the trailers.
Yeah. We have one of our laborers allocated for 2 hours per day, basically an hour on site doing his wipe downs of the stair towers and touchable surfaces, and then in here as well. A lot of our COVID cases have been our trailers with multiple people being infected at the same time. So I do find it to be helpful to just have him cleaning. We had a COVID case literally a day ago with somebody who sits right in the middle here around probably 6 or 8 people. So I'm hoping no additional COVID cases, but I do think it's still a problem for our team, unfortunately. So that was how we came up with the value.
Not to belabor it, but surface transmission is understood to be low. So I wonder if we might get some consult from the health department on this in terms of where we could be spending our money best to support reduction in transmission. But I think surface cleaning is generally the lowest value.
I'm not an expert in that, so Tom, maybe a review with with Wes and just verify. Now, the other issue here is Skanska corporate has protocols that they are obligated to follow. So even if we decide otherwise as a community, we do have to respect their procedures. So, but that's our discussion, Kate, I had with Jim is that, and Paige, is that this should be, as you're suggesting, something that is on the reduction. And we would hope that by the end of this year, changes would minimize, if not eliminate, that. So this budget is to take us to the end of the year. The last time we had this in front of us, Justin, was, I think, probably last year.
Yes.
So hopefully this is, and we were doing it every 3 months. So you can see it's trailing in the good direction, and hopefully this is the last time we have this one. So this change order, which is change order number 34 in the amount of $46,783, is the one they would have to approve. And we keep it separate, by the way. That's why it's not lumped into the next one, even though it's a small number relatively. We've been still tracking it separately. Can I have a motion on this?
So moved.
Bob?
Yeah.
Second, Pat, second.
Second, Pat. Okay. Committee members, would you turn your mics on, please? All those in favor, Emma Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you, Emma. Patrice Garvin?
Yes.
John Phelan? Pat Bruce?
Yes.
John, I didn't hear you there. Okay. Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Yes.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lavallo, yes. So Bob, so the next one is where Bob wanted to dig in, and this is our monthly change order, and it has, I think 35 was the last time I counted these, and the changes in change order number 35, interesting, maybe I got that mixed up. And I typically ask that Perkins and Will goes through this in a little detail, talking about those changes that are sizable. Of course, committee members, please stop him at any time, even if there's something you want to talk about that wasn't mentioned. Is this going to be Brian?
It is.
Okay, so we'll want to start our review.
Sure. So as Bill noted, please feel free to interrupt me. As usual, I'm going to go through the items that exceed $10,000 in either the plus or the minus direction. Starting with PCO 624, which is a credit of a little over $10,000. This is related to CCD 337, which removed a portion of concrete sidewalk in the northwest corner of the site. Sidewalk isn't really required in this area. We have other hardscape in that area for folks to get from the parking there to the building. And there was also a desire to allow some flexibility for a separate ongoing project that's considering a future underpass and intergenerational path that would connect to and run through the school property on the west side of the site. So leaving the sidewalk out here prevents any added demolition in the future and allows a little bit more flexibility for that ongoing and parallel design, which is separate from this project.
Brian, you say the northwest corner of the site. Is that the northwest corner of phase 2?
Phase 1. So this is right along the Harris Field edge.
This is in line with the future Alexander underpass.
Great, thank you.
And it's not a safety issue because the route for people parking along there would generally be across the way right to the sidewalk that's on the other side as they enter the school.
That's correct. Moving a few rows lower here to PCO 607. The cost represented in this PCO, which we talked about a little earlier in the meeting, is to substitute Cape Cod berm style curbing for salvaged granite curbing. that was taken from the old high school for parking areas along the north edge of the site. So this cost includes only the areas that were constructed in phase one. The previous conversation was relative to the scope that's part of phase two.
So in phase one, we were able to really capitalize on salvaged granite because we had plenty of it. We ran out of it for phase two, right?
Correct. One row lower to PCO 639 R1. Cost represented in this PCO is to add 9 concrete filled steel traffic bollards around some above ground electrical switchgear equipment to comply with the requirements by Belmont Light for vehicular protection for that equipment. Moving one row lower to PCO 595 R2. This CCD provided a temporary signage and traffic markings plan for Concord Ave to cover the period, the transition period really between the existing markings prior to any construction through phase one through final completion.
So just for committee members, we own final markings, thermoplastic, the real durable stuff. What you see out on Concord Ave right now is second round of some interim markings as we wait for town of Belmont, I guess some traffic groups working on this to determine exactly how the configuration will be for parking and bike lanes. So this summer we are going again not be able to finish that permanent striping, and we'll be waiting hopefully later this year to get some direction so that our final summer will be milling that area which we own under contract and putting the final thermoplastic markings down. Tom, I think you've been working closely with Glenn Clancy, Office of Community Development, to track those decisions, and timing wise, it's not going to work for this summer again. Just letting you guys know.
That is correct.
Okay, moving down to PCO 580 R1. This is a credit of around $80,000. Credit here is to substitute a cast-in-place concrete wall with chain link fencing above, which was in the bid design. That was a screen around the emergency generator, the backside of the building. This substitutes that wall for either bollards or precast concrete blocks. The project has a surplus of traffic bollards, so we may repurpose those for this reason. But this cost does not represent any added cost associated with the substitution of the blocks or bollards. But whatever we end up with, we don't expect to exceed this credit value. So at the end of the day, it will be a net credit. Moving down to PCO 508 R1. The cost in this PCO is to remove some base material for a roadway that had been placed but did not meet specification. The specification for the material wasn't clear at the time the material was placed. Clarification was ultimately provided after some of the material had already been used. So the cost here is to remove that rejected material that had been placed. Moving down to PCO 613. This is related to ASI.
Can I interrupt and ask a quick question on that one?
Sure.
I mean, so that one sounds like it was a mistake that was made somewhere. And I know some of this stuff just does happen and we have to accept it. But if in fact it's evident that there was a clear mistake made, is some of that cost in those cases handled by those that are potentially, responsible for that mistake?
I think this cost started out much higher.
Yeah.
Much higher. This happened nearly a year ago. So it's been battle. I don't remember what the original cost was.
I think it was close to 50. I could be off. It may have been north of 50, but the contractor involved, it basically ended up being a bit of a split because they did proceed. They really had to proceed with the work in order for us to turn over the school on time. But on that note, they did technically proceed at risk because they did not have the information for the product. So after, like Bill said, about a year almost of negotiating this is where we landed. While Brian keeps going, I can pull up what it was originally too, in case I'm wrong, but I think it was north of 50.
Yeah, the ultimate negotiated cost here was for the additional cost of using the correct material.
Okay.
So
well, yes, thank you for that. And it sounds like you guys went through a very rational process there. Sometimes a little bit of context around those things that are clearly mistakes helps us just have confidence that that you guys are going through the appropriate negotiations with the contractors. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving down to PCO again, 613. This was related to a supplemental instruction 209. This revised several spot elevations in the basketball practice court area. This is the area kind of between one of the new middle school wings and the east side of the field house. The spot elevations were incorrect where the grading meets the building, the existing building. So we had to move those down. And we also added, I believe it was 2 area drains that are required to provide adequate drainage for this area. Moving down.
On that one, two related questions. Where is it draining? And what is the monitoring for that space outside of school hours? Do we have cameras there or what is it?
We do. We have several cameras in this area. There's at least 2. One is mounted to the building, looking north, kind of at the deepest portion of that pocket, call it. There's also another camera mounted off the northwest corner of the F wing that captures the area around the generator, the practice courts, and also the driveway going around the building on that side. And to answer your question about the drainage, the area drains just tie into the overall underground site drainage design. So they're hard pipe drain.
Okay, I guess I have seen some of the courts fail in some regard quickly. And so I'm wondering if, or hoping that any drainage might go, towards the roadway or, not be internal to the court itself.
Oh, I see. You're asking more where it's pitched, where the drainage is pitched. I'd have to look specifically at the plan, to be honest. But some of that is a little bit dependent on the grading because this is kind of a triangular shape. We have to meet certain grades at the perimeter, and you're kind of left with a certain, resolution in the middle. You also have to make sure that the grade is accessible, that it doesn't exceed the allowable cross slope. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But we certainly try to keep area drains and low spots where we can out of the field of play to prevent people from tripping and things like that. I hope that answered that.
Do we put a fence in that area too?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just to add to that, we have a gate, a fence with a gate that closes off that area off hours or throughout the whole day, actually.
Yep.
Yes, that fence was added very early on in the process when we did our review with the police department.
Thank you. I recall that as well. Thanks.
Sure. Moving down to PCO 637, this is related to CCD 372, which added illuminated exit signs for the girls and boys pool locker room areas. and also the black box catwalk. The signage was not previously shown in the documents, but is required. It's required outright by code for the pool locker room. There was some interpretation for the black box catwalk area, and ultimately in communication with the fire department determined that it was best to provide illuminated signage at each corner of the black box catwalk to avoid, essentially to make it as safe as possible. Jumping down a few rows to PCO 633. Cost represented here is to extend an exhaust stack for the emergency generator. As specified and originally installed, the exhaust was too close to an air intake louver coming off of the field house. So we needed to extend the stack from roughly 10 feet to 20. And this cost isn't just to extend the literal pipe of the stack, it's also to revise the guy wires and so forth that provide stability for the exhaust pipe. Moving down to PCO 629, this is related to a CCD number 410, which upgraded the interior vestibule glass from standard to security grade in the middle school. All might recall we made the same change for the high school. This is the counterpart for the middle school. We already own security grade glass for the glass that's at the exterior for the vestibule. Moving down to PCO 597 R1, this is a credit value of close to $71,000. The credit offered in this PCO is to account for a manufacturing defect in the metal panel that was used at several exterior soffit locations. This is the metal panel that you'll see at the Area A overhang that leads into the main entrance to the high school. It's also located on some soffits on the west side of the music area. The manufacturer did state that there would be no adverse effects to the technical performance of the panels. The manufacturer and the installer are honoring all of the originally specified warranties. They provided documentation to verify that, and we've also reviewed it from an aesthetic point of view, and the issue is very minor aesthetically. It's barely noticeable. I'm sure no one has even noticed that there's an issue there. And so we as a team recommended moving forward with this credit being offered. Moving a few rows lower to PCO 618 R1, the cost in this PCO is to backfill some of the site utility excavations with dense grade in lieu of putting back the removed existing subgrade material, which, as you all know, we've had several change orders now dealing with the poor condition of the subgrade. The decision to backfill with replaced material was the recommendation of the owners, your geotechnical engineer.
So Bob, this is one you asked about.
Yeah. So I'm listening.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't have any other comments on that one. I don't know if you want me to stop to discuss further.
So you mean on this PCCO? Or?
Yes, yep. I do have two more to cover, but I don't know if you wanted me to stop to discuss this particular one.
No, I think Bob was just wanting to know a little more background of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Earlier in the meeting. Yeah. Thank you for waiting, Bob.
I got to leave a little after 10, Bill.
So to everyone else, and we're going to be wrapping up here with the votes.
Okay, just two more left here. PCO 650, the cost in this PCO represents The removal and replacement, again, of some unstable existing subgrade material. This is T&M billing that you've seen month to month to address that particular condition. And lastly, PCO 643R1. The cost in this PCO represents the labor required to replace the roofing above the former boiler room. We did include the replacement of this roofing in the bid documents. However, once we removed all of the decommissioned equipment that came out of that room, that resulted in discovery of quite a few roof penetrations and ductwork that was removed, leaving openings in the roof deck that needed to be structurally patched with angle and plate. And so the cost here really represents a lot of that unforeseen patchwork and modifications that were required to provide it.
This was done on slips too, right, guys?
That's correct. So this is again a T&M.
Yeah, it was a combination of T&M and a lump sum proposal from the roofer.
Okay, so thank you, Brian. Any questions on committee members? I know that we're getting close on time, but I do have this quick change order for FF&E and then a dozen invoices to approve. So is there a motion then to approve prime contract change order number 35 in the amount of $207,870?
So moved, Bob McLaughlin.
Pat second.
Okay, all in favor? Emma Thurston?
Yes.
Patrice Garvin?
Yes.
John Phelan?
Yes.
Pat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Bowen and I.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes, sir.
Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
And Bill Lovallo? Yes. Thank you. So we have just a couple more things to do. One is, I think, Christine, could be a fairly quick discussion on FF&E since it's not significant, but some things happen, and maybe you could just get a little background to why this. I'll share this why we're needing to get a slight contract change. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Christina Stred. Christina Mulligan, sorry, from Perkins Well. Like Bill said, we'll do it short and sweet. The agenda is just going over the budget summary, which hasn't changed. And then we're ordering a new item. So I don't know, Bill, if you wanted to jump to, this is just our budget summary slide.
You've seen this before. We're still doing well. But this is the issue right here in front of us.
Yep. So package 9 that we're talking about today is really, we need to buy an adapter to convert the kitchen toasters to the right voltage to the building. This model number actually comes with 3 different voltage styles. It's the same model number, so it's a little confusing, but this package that we're proposing is the adapter needed to have the toasters work with the building.
So we have toasters and they haven't been used, been able to plug in, as Christine said, an oversight on the specs made on the owner side. And so we would need to just have a change to that agreement, that contract, which is Harbor Foods. That is the proper spelling, Harbor Foods Service, $880. Any questions? Committee members, is there a motion to approve? This is going to be a new PO, I guess, for Harbor Food Service, $880, right? Is that how you're doing it? Is that how you're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Move approval, Bob McLaughlin.
Pat second.
Okay, all in favor? Emma Thurston? Emma? Okay, we lost Emma. I don't know.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Patrice Garvin?
Yes.
Don Phelan?
Yes.
Matt Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Bowen and I.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lovallo? Yes. Okay, our last grouping of votes to take today would be for our treasurer, Mike McAllister. You're up. And I think the best, what we did last month worked really well. So we group our invoicing into 3 categories. One is vendors, that's the yellow. the green is consultants, and the blue is contractor. And so, Michael, I think what we did last time is we read with the first grouping, all of them. If there are no questions or exceptions, then I'll take one roll call vote for all of those together.
All right, so this is my first rodeo. So if I get it wrong, let me know. I'm gonna, Bill, just basically read the green ones to start, correct?
The yellow ones.
Yeah. The other ones to start. All right. So the first one is invoice number 101604 in the amount of $910.98. PO number 29638 for Clean and Safe.
And this is probably not huge. So let's see. I'm sorry. Someone could explain.
Yes, this is an FF&E invoice vendor for a couple of. This is for trash receptacles.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. Maybe you could go right after Michael and explain. Okay. Go ahead, Karina.
Next one is invoice number 186579 in the amount of $3,984. PO number 29467 to Creative Office Pavilion. Read the next one.
Oops, I'm sorry. Did you want to explain each one of these?
Sandra, yeah. So can you just explain really quick, Sandra, what these are for? Yep.
Okay, this is for two flammable cabinets for the custodial shop for storage.
Okay.
Next one is invoice number 186580 in the amount of $700. PO number 29642 to Creative Office Pavilion.
And this is for the plexiglass cover for the light table for the photography classroom.
Next one is invoice number 5357064 in the amount of $200.64 for PO 29465 to Fisher Scientific.
These are for receptacles for the mother's rooms. So one of them is going to be for the shop's containers and another for trash receptacles. Both of these are, yes.
The next one is invoice 129564 in the amount of $88.08 for PO number 29465 to Fisher Scientific.
Additional receptacles for the mother's rooms.
Next one is invoice number 566564 in the amount of $767.50 for PO 28025 to Harbor Food Services Equipment.
And this is for a replacement part for some of the equipment, for a piece of equipment, the food slicer in the kitchen.
The next one is invoice number 99172-1 in the amount of $14,212.50 to UTS.
This is our testing agency for soil, rebar, concrete, fireproof, spray fireproofing. I think I got them all.
Next one is for invoice number 99581 in the amount of $15,165 to payable to UTS.
For the same thing.
Yeah, one was for March and one was for April.
Okay.
Yeah. So committee members, is there anyone objecting to or have any concerns about any one of these that were just read off? And if not, I'm going to ask for a group approval.
Bob McLaughlin, move approval collectively of the invoices just explained.
For the vendors, okay. Second, Pat?
Pat, second.
Okay, all in favor? Emma Thurston?
Yes.
Emma? That's Patrice Garvin? Patrice? John Phelan?
Aye.
Pat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Moody?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Bowen, aye.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lovallo? Yes. So the next one we'll do will be our consultants.
All right. Invoice number 38840-30 in the amount of $132,000 payable to CHA.
This is the monthly draw from our agreement.
Next one is invoice number 38840-31 in the amount of $24,464.52 payable to CHA.
This is for McHale and IDS.
Okay. Last one.
Next one is invoice number 190645 in the amount of $101,558 payable to Perkins and Will.
Okay, this is a monthly draw again, under our agreement, Perkins and Will. So these three invoices, any objections from the committee members? Approval as a group, hearing none. The motion.
I move collectively for the CHA and the Perkins and Will invoices just explained. Approval.
Second, Pat.
Okay, all in favor? Emma Thurston?
Yes.
Patrice Garvin? John Phelan?
Yes.
Pat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes, and
Joe
Bill, I
Mooney.
apologize. I have to drop at 10.
Yes. Joe Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Oh, and I.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lavallo, yes. And the last one, Skanska's pay application 40.
Yep. Invoice is application number 40 in the amount of $3,442,677 payable to Skanska.
Move approval.
Second, Pat.
All in
Yes.
favor? Emma Thurston?
Just, Bill, just
Yeah.
for the record, that is $670, Mike.
Oh,
Sorry, $3,442,670.
okay. Emma Thurston, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay. John Phelan?
Yes.
Pat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Dave Blazon?
Yes, and I have to get off. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Tom Caputo, I think left.
Here
Okay.
I
Thank
am. Yes.
Last vote. Thank you, Tom. Joel Mooney?
Yes, I have to sign off as well.
Okay. Kate Bowen?
Oh, and I.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes, and I gotta leave too.
Chris Messer?
Yes.
Mike McAllister?
Yes.
Bill Lavallo? I'm sorry, Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lavallo, yes. I don't have to leave right now, but I will be wrapping this up. Okay, so that's the last. Thank you, Michael. I think you passed the test. You are now officially our treasurer extraordinaire. Okay, so the last two things we do, I will turn over to Skanska for our construction update and our project schedule update, and then we'll hear from community members. And let me just, I'm sorry, pull up the quick construction update. Hopefully you guys will see that in a second. There we go. So are you going?
Yes, I'm going. I'll go fast. All right. Field house, locker room renovation. We've been working on finishes in that space. We started our boiler room roof replacement, which allows us to complete finishes in the boiler room space. That was lagging a bit just because weather tight aspect there. In the site, we have started raising grades. If you look on the webcam, I'm sure you can see it. It's pretty significant. And we've continued on with under slab utilities in the area D and F in the footprint of the building. And then also around the site, we've been doing drainage all over the place. And we completed the installation of the retaining wall and the retention system. As far as structure, we poured a lot of slabs last month. So slab on deck, F2, F3, F4, and slab on grade in area D. We have area F scheduled for about 10 days from now, and that will complete our concrete pours. We continue.
Just a little note on that, that for the public, that will be a start of 5 a.m. I think you got approval from the police department on that.
Yes.
And we'll coordinate just because there's so much concrete being placed. We need to start earlier to be done.
Right.
In the day.
Yeah, with area D, we started a little bit early. I think we started at 6, and we still were here on site until 10 p.m. doing finishing. So
how many trucks do you anticipate for that placement?
Oh, I should know this. I don't.
Okay.
Quite a few.
100, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was about 1,000-yard pour, and so is area F, just perspective. But continuing on, we continued with spray fireproofing. We've continued with layout, top track, and actually framing on most floors at this point. Overhead MEPs on D2, D3, and they're moving over to F2. Started framing and also sheathing on the exterior, which you will likely see the yellow out there. And roof parapet work. We mobilized the roofer at the end of last month. So he's here now. Commissioning ongoing. We did a lot during April vacation while we could get into the school. We did do the generator cutover successfully over April vacation as well. That was something we had been tracking for a long time. So I wanted to give an update there. And then looking ahead, if you want to move on.
Okay, there you go.
Yep. All right. So like I mentioned before, Fieldhouse locker room, we're in finishes at this point in that space, planning to turn it over in September. And then phase 2 site, we're going to continue on with our raising grades effort. And also we're trying to get a binder level down. We're scheduled tentatively for next week on the North Road and then the future bus loop. We haven't firmed the date yet, but that is coming up. That's basically just our first level of pavement. So it'll help us mitigate dust and give everybody a good road surface to work off of.
When you say bus loop, you mean the middle school drop off?
Yes, middle school drop off. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Continuing on with spray fireproofing, like I said, we placed at the end of last month slab on grade and D, going to be placing slab on grade and F, and that will complete our concrete pours. Continuing on with layout and top track and framing, they're all over the building at this point with layout and top track and even framing. The elevator shaft has started. I think it may have started at the end of April. We're up through the roof now with the elevator shaft. And then the roofer is working his way. He's starting on area D roof. He's got probably half of that roof complete right now, built up. And he's just kind of continuing on, and then he'll go to area F after he completes area D. Phase 1, same thing. Commissioning is still an ongoing item that we're working through. And then some progress photos. Here is the North Road I was talking about, and then just drainage efforts going there.
The road also includes parking on the side.
Yes, yes. Yeah. This is slab on grade area D before we poured. And then also our area F roof, that's at the mechanical wall up there. So that has actually all been poured at this time. This is some progress photos taken from D2. And you can see not only is it laid out in top track, we've actually framed quite a bit, and we've done our priority walls as well. And then under slab efforts in area F, again, prepping that. We're tentative for the 23rd for the pour. And again, you can see a lot of ductwork going in right now. That's the placement. Actually, that's not on slab on grade, but that's a slab on deck placement. And the roof parapet, you can see is going. That had to get done before the roofer could start. And this is the locker room. So like I said, the painter's been in there basically the whole month of April working on painting that space. Quite a bit of work in the boiler room, the old boiler room. That's the whole white space on the right side of the screen, just with painting above ceiling. I mean, it's open ceiling, sorry.
If it's not moving, it's getting painted.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then schedule wise, if we go over to the blue, you can see that we're into overhead MEP installation. As you saw in the photos, we're moving through that. Exterior facade really kicked off last month, and we are pushing that about as hard as we can push it because it dictates when we can pull wire, which is critical path for the project. And so that building type date, July 7th, that's the date that we will start pulling wire, which really takes us through to the completion of the project. That's the critical pathway to get to the end.
When will we see the mason show up?
The mason is going to mobilize in June.
Okay.
So a little different this phase. We're actually having curtain wall go, which they did in phase 1, but they didn't put their glazing in the first phase. So they're actually going to put their glazing in ahead of the mason. So the mason was pushed out a little bit, but that's in an effort to just be as efficient as possible. We've tested the glass to make sure that when the mason washes down, it won't affect the glass. But all of the glass will be protected, but that was one of the concerns in phase one, and we didn't have time to do like extensive testing, which we did this phase. So trying to do better, be better, more efficient, get the building tight faster.
Okay, and then we're still tracking for substantial completion in July.
Yes.
Which is tremendous because that gives us time to move furniture in and do all that sort of stuff and be ready by the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
So, good. Any questions, committee members, on either the construction progress or schedule? Not hearing any at this point. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are community members that would like to or have comments or questions. I did see some hands earlier. Brian Eiler.
Hi, thank you. Brian Eiler, School Street. Very encouraged by the Diane Miller's project to get some updated and clearer information for the public. Thank you very much for making that a priority. And maybe to add to that list, just listening to these, and I've been watching this now for pretty closely for at least 6 months, 8 months. The terminology is very confusing about what numbers mean, what certain line items are. Are they set numbers? Are they things that you're beginning to look at? Are they things that need to be voted on now? So, and I can tell also from the questions from the committee that it's not necessarily terribly clear to them as well. So I think it would be helpful for the public, the viewing public here, to have a little information about what this process is and what these numbers mean. And again, a lot of the terminology is Greek to us. And another thing that would be helpful is, for instance, Tom Caputo had a good question earlier about one of the line items. I believe it was 508, 508R1. And it sounds like someone goofed up. Goof ups happen, and the cost to remedy it was mitigated somewhat. It would be really helpful to see what was the total cost of the problem, who took responsibility, how that cost was reduced, et cetera. You know what I mean? Just to have that be a little more visible to us, because for us, we see a lot of these change orders and they sound like big goof ups, and we don't know who's taking responsibility and who isn't. And I know in many cases somebody is. It'd be good for us to see what that is.
Thank you, Brian. I do understand what you're saying regarding a little more history on the changes to give the backstory of where it started and because you just hear where it ends, but you don't know the whole story. I think that we can do a little more on that. I am very challenged to try to pull this business meeting off in 2 hours, as you can tell, but with some patience and with some polishing of what we're doing, I think we could do better. I think, Diane, we're going to have to figure out where we go with a glossary of construction terms and see. I don't know if it fits within a building committee meeting or it's some type of a frequently asked question type of thing about terminology, but we'll work on that because that's a good point too. We live this day in and day out, some of us in our profession and others that are tuning in get lost right away with the terminology. I understand that. So thank you. Stephanie, you have your hand. Yes.
I think it would actually be great to consider maybe doing a sheet just like we are doing right now for the PVs, that we have sort of a fact sheet that addresses some of these questions, because I think those are very good questions.
That's kind of where I was going. So got a lot of sheets to create, but we will work on those. And then we'll put them on our front page, right? That's what we're trying to do of the website, so people have easy access to them.
And if I can just jump in again, this is Brian. I'm happy to help out in that process. I think I am someone who has a lot of questions, obviously, and has a lot of confusion. So I'd be happy to work with Diane or whoever so that her efforts can be directed to actually answering questions that many of us have.
Good, thank you, and you are very vocal in your email exchange to us, and we try to capture those in the broader sense for the community to get the answers that you're looking for out to everyone. So thank you for continuing to do that. Stephanie, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi, thank you. I have a couple of questions for CHA. In the previous total project cost summary, CHA mentioned that PV panels were removed from Skanska's GMP, but still in project. Now they're adding it back. My question is, Bill said at the select board meeting that the building committee had never considered putting PV on the chopping block. So why and when was the PV removed from Skanska's GMP contract? And also, my second question is, when you remove a 2.6 million budget line item from the GMP contract, how come the bottom line stays the same? Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll answer that. So I'm thinking that you're missing a few meetings here and there, but the building committee is not removing PV from the project. There was a consideration of the building committee managing and procuring the PV directly without Skanska. So that decision was made several months ago in consultation with our PV design expert, and looking at the pros and cons. The building committee realized that it's much better to have Skanska continue to manage the PV. So they are now back managing that. It'll be procured through the GMP contract. And so I'm sorry that you may have misunderstood. Sometimes these conversations get a little confusing, but we, as a building committee, have voted to certainly procure and install the PV for the project as originally planned. And you certainly can go to our website front page next week when we give it a refresh, and you'll see the PV fact list on there, and you'll understand exactly what the plan is. That's a good question. I didn't realize that the community was getting confused as to how our dialogue was going with PV.
No, I was not confused. I attended most of the meetings. No, what I do understand is when you remove something from the budget, how come the bottom line stays the same? So basically the 2.6 million solar budget was still in the GMP, but it was removed from it. So what's the point of doing it?
Again, the thought was to remove it to save on some money on management and take more control, but we realized that's too much of a risk, Stephanie. And so it's staying within the GMP contract. Formally, it was never voted as a change order because the process of removing it takes some time. And as we were looking through what scope impacts, for instance, warranty and job coordination, safety, we realized that it was very difficult to remove and still get the value we needed out of it. So it was never formally removed. Therefore, the contract hasn't changed from the Skanska side. There was no change order formally voted on by the building committee. It was a decision to do that, but it was never voted on. I hope that explains the issue. And I don't see any other hands raised. Any other committee members have comments or have any new business? Thank you. Before Bob, I think he left, but before we leave, I struggled to try and keep this meeting at 2 hours, especially as we're asked to add more information, and we do. And so we'll continue to try and strive to move this along. If the committee thinks that there's a reason to go to 2 meetings a month to get all this captured, by all means, we could start to reconsider that. But I'm trying to keep your meeting attendance to a relative minimum. I did go back and look. In 2020, we had 30 meetings in 12 months. In 2021, we had, I think we had 22 in 12 months. We're on pace right now to probably have about 24 this year if we continue at this, and that's about once every other week. And that's because we need to get through business to have the other meetings that we need to have to do the other stuff. Next month, there's very likely another meeting to vote to approve PV, to get a decision on how we're bidding it and the ad alternates and such. And there's maybe something else that's worked in there, but I'll just stay tuned. I will send the building committee the invites for the site tour, which is the 26th again of this month. And our next building committee meeting then is June 9th at 8 a.m. It's a business meeting. That being said, I have nothing else to add today.
Motion to end of the meeting. Chris Messer.
Chris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. The meeting is ended. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.